My name is Kara Wolf. I saw the play myself and stayed for the entire show, including through intermission, and I'm completing this response on my own without anyone else's ideas. So my reaction to the play in words was happy, delighted, and uplifted. I chose these words because it was a very youthful show and it was fun and cute, and you can't help but be happy and delighted and uplifted after you watch it. The name of the playwrights are Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens. The show's genre is a comedy, and I said this because based on what we learned in class, it had an overall light tone and a happy ending. I think the protagonist was Jojo, and Jojo was fighting for the right to embrace his things and be accepted by society. I said the climax is when Jojo yells along with the Who's to have them heard and thus saved from being destroyed. The language was mostly informal, but it was also kind of poetic because they were rhyming, and there was a good mix of long speeches where they'd go on a tangent and then also back and forth conversations. A repeated phrase that I picked up on was, "A person's a person no matter how small," and I think it was repeated to establish it as one of the main lessons of the story. The name of the director was Tommy LaFrate, and the stage that we used was a proscenium. Overall, the cast fit their roles very well, I said, and they worked very well together as an ensemble. I said it was very diverse in terms of gender and race, and it spoke to the necessity of to diversify theater. And a specific staging moment I chose was when the Who's were shouting to be saved, and it was set up with the Who's all the way on the right side, I think, if I remember correctly, while everyone from Horton's reality was in the middle. And I think it made the moment effective because cramping the Who's to one side established it as there being two different worlds on stage at the same time, but also them interacting, because one thing would happen with Horton's characters in the middle of the stage, and then you'd look to the right and then you'd see how that's affecting the Who's on the right side of the stage. An actor whose work I appreciated was Vanessa Plisko, and she played Gertrude. She embodied Gertrude's neurotic personality throughout the play, and she used her body to show Gertrude's growth and confidence, because in the beginning her body language is very compact and you can tell she was insecure, and then and it was more conservative with her body language, but towards the end she became more confident and wasn't afraid to dance a little more and just kind of show off her stuff. A specific acting moment that I appreciated was when she was singing Notice Me Horton. And a specific aspect of the character she seemed to be working to capture was her impatience towards Horton, and she used her voice to capture it by starting to softly ask Horton to notice her, and then very loudly and annoyed, she started yelling more for Horton to notice her. My reaction to that moment was I related to her, because sometimes you start pretty calm about a situation, but then when you start just waiting and you don't get the outcome you want, then you grow very frustrated, and she really captured that frustration, I thought. And a second specific acting moment was when she got her towel, and a specific aspect she seemed to be working to capture was her newfound confidence, because she did this by using her body, because when she got her towel she showed it off, and I can't really explain it, but you could just tell she seemed so much more confident. She was showing off her towel, shaking her body, and she definitely did not seem as closed off as Gertrude used to when she had the small towel. My reaction to her performance in that moment was kind of proud, yes, you just got your towel, be confident. A designer that I chose is the costume designer. Their names are Catherine Poley and Eliana Rudnicki. The overall color palette was anything bright, so I noticed a lot of oranges, pinks, blues, and purples, but basically any just fun popping colors. And and the overall feel of the costumes was eccentric and playful. There were many different costumes for each there were many different costumes, and each character's costume differed a lot. Like, they didn't really use base costumes except for the purple birds, which they all kind of just wore like a purple dress and then a towel. One specific design choice I noticed was JoJo's shirt that he wears throughout the entire show. It's this white and blue shirt, and it's striped, and it was youthful and fun. And I think they made the specific choice to establish JoJo as a young and immature character that had a lot to learn. And a second specific choice I noticed was Gertrude's second towel, the new one, and it happened when she took the pills and got a new towel. And this piece was orange, and it was very eccentric, fun, and unique. I think the designer chose this to make Gertrude stand out more than the other birds. Instead of giving her the same towel as other birds, she gave her a bigger one and a more colorful one, establishing her as like more of a main character and like watch out for this one. And in terms of the artist's work overall, I thought that the actors, directors, and designers all worked very well together, and it felt like they were in the same world. I think the artist's overall purpose was to make the audience think about the importance of individual thinking and creativity. And something I thought more about since watching the show was how different viewing experience of musicals and plays are in person rather than a recording. And I felt like I was very immersed in the Seussical world when I watched it live, because sometimes the characters would even interact with the crowd, and they started off sitting in the crowd before they actually made it upstage. I was actually in the same row as like 3 people down from JoJo in the beginning of the play, and it just made me think a lot about how Professor E said like the importance of theater, like with the human to human connection, because it's way different than watching a movie, in my opinion.